accomplishment I'm most proud of, probably making the Olympic team. I was not the kid who grew up always wanting to be an Olympian. It was something that really was the result of hard work and a lot of good support. It was an amazing experience. I was lucky enough that my family could be there also, so that made it extra special. My family was able to come to was 76 Olympics in Montreal, and so it was close by and they could all get there and drive, including my grandmother, and so it was pretty fabulous. It had been the culmination of 4 years of work and all the people that, the camaraderie that we had amongst the team and the way we were able to support each other, as well as just the opportunity to interact with people from all over the world, not just fencers, but people from other sports that you got to know, people that you had seen on television and who were pretty famous. And now here you were on the team with them, being able to have conversations and talk, and met some amazing people. The 1980 boycott of the Olympics was something that I kind of hoped wasn't going to happen. I think we kept training, we kept working, hoping that things would change. And then when it finally was announced, it was extremely disappointing. It was very demoralizing in a sport like ours where we didn't have professional contracts, we didn't have USOC money. All the blood, sweat, and tears had been ours. The money we had put out, the time, delayed so much of their life, put their life on hold to make that team. And now, in spite of your hard work, which is what athletics teaches us, that if you work hard and you persevere and you do the things that you are supposed to do and have a little bit of luck, that you will be rewarded. And here we did all of that, and then someone else takes it away for purely political reasons. It was very frustrating, but it was something that we had no control over. Oh, very empathetic. The postponement at least keeps your hope alive, hoping that it will happen this summer. And now with the vaccine, I think there may be a better chance of it happening. And so they still have hope. They still have a reason to train and to continue. For some of us in 80, we knew that was going to be our last Olympic Games. It was time to move on with our lives. And it was a finality to it. When it's postponed for a year, you don't have that same feeling. So hopefully the Olympics will happen this summer and there won't be the same level of disappointment. I am one of those people that always stayed very busy, always had a lot of things going on. So at the time of the 80 Games, I was working on my doctorate, I was teaching class, I was at Temple, I was coaching and training. So it wasn't like all my eggs were in one basket. And so when it happened, it was just like, okay, my focus then turned to the other things that I was doing. I was never one to have a total focus on just one thing. And in a way that helped me, I think, adjust more easily to the decision to boycott. I was coaching from the first time I got to Temple. When I first arrived at Temple, there was a men's team and there was a women's club. Denise O'Connor, who was my college coach and a wonderful mentor, and my mom actually conspired to get me to go to Temple and leave New York for a brief period of time and get my master's because I wanted to teach school, so I needed to get my master's anyway. So they said, well, why not go do it now? You get, tuition paid for, you get a little bit of a stipend. I made a whole big $3,000 a year. And, I was rich. So I ended up at Temple, went to the women's athletic director and said, well, how come the men have a team and the women only have a club? And only because I had only known a team. I didn't know anything about a club. At Brooklyn College, we had a team and that's all I was exposed to. And she said to me, well, I don't know. Why should we have a team? And I went, well, yeah. And she said, oh, okay. So we'll have a team if you have enough interest. That's how the team started at Temple. So I started coaching my very first semester at Temple right out of college. Today, that would never happen. Here you have an inexperienced, recent college graduate that now is coaching a Division I athletic team. That's pretty much unheard of. We started out just grabbing kids who were interested kids out of the class. My first All-American was a field hockey player who came out for fencing after the field hockey season because her friend was on the team. And so we would have practice, and I would say, okay, tomorrow everybody has to bring a friend. That's how we developed our team and grew our team until the point where we could actually recruit and had scholarships and so forth. But we started from nothing. The most satisfying thing about coaching for me is just the young ladies that I have an opportunity to interact with on a daily basis. When you go to college and you have class, you may see a professor 2 or 3 times a week for an hour or an hour and a half. As coaches, we're with these young ladies 4 or 5 days a week for 2 to 3 hours. We're with them all day for competition. And so you really get to know them. You get to be part of their lives and they're part of yours. Being able to bring young ladies into our program as teenagers and seeing them graduate 4 years as young adults ready for the world, prepared to go into the world, and knowing that their experience at their time at Temple was very special. And part of why it was special was because of our sport. That's very satisfying, and so many of them still stay in touch, and we have such good relationships. It's nice that they appreciated the opportunity that they were given, and I appreciated being able to give them that opportunity to not just compete, but to get a good education, really be part of something that was bigger than themselves. My philosophy in trying to help them grow as young ladies is to try to set an example, to try to build a program and have them experience what it's like to have other women support them, to encourage them, to want the very best for them. Philosophically, I'm very team-oriented, and it's really all about team, and it's all about how can we help each other, that we have to trust each other, and we have to really care about each other and hold each other accountable, to be very demanding, but to still be very loving also. And I think all of that is important. It's the tone that you set at the top, letting our athletes know that you care about them as people before you care about them as athletes. I recruit people who happen to fence, not fencers who are also people. And so I'm very particular about the type of person that I think will fit into our program. Not everyone will fit. Not everyone will want the kind of experience that we have to offer, and that's okay, because everyone is different. You have to buy in, and as a family, buy in. When we recruit a young lady, we recruit the family. They're part of our team. Not every coach feels that way, but when you're trying to recruit a young lady, the family has to buy in also and know that you're going to be there looking after their daughter, making sure that she's okay, making sure that she is on the right track. That's part of my responsibility as a coach. We have the results that we get because of the hard work of the young women in our program and because of the environment that we set for them. We've gone from nothing to last year being ranked 5th in the country as a women's team. That is based on our work ethic. You know, we don't get all the blue chip national team members on our team. We look for young ladies who want to work hard, who are coachable, who are passionate, who love fencing and not just doing it to get into college, and who are willing to be part of something, who are looking forward to being part of something bigger than themselves and being able to contribute. What can you give as opposed to what can you get? When you have a group of people like that, I truly believe the sky's the limit. And they push each other, but they help each other and they care about each other. But it all goes back to work ethic and environment and coaching, of course. But they have to be willing to listen. They have to be respectful of not just us as a coaching staff, but of each other. Those are the things that are important, that have a lot to do with our success. I didn't start fencing until my senior year of high school, only because we had a new teacher come to the school and introduce fencing. It changed my life from there because it changed where I went to college. It changed how I got to Temple. And so fencing has been very, very influential in my life. And to want to be a coach, you have to be passionate. You have to love the sport. You have to love the grind because the reward is so much more satisfying than the hard work. I think that we have to constantly grow and learn and adapt and adjust, not only to fencing and the techniques or to fencing strategy, but also to young people. Over my many decades of fencing, of coaching, young people are different. I've gone from the hip coach who was running out there along with the team and they had to keep up with me, to the wise old coach who plays mom, uses that a little bit to her advantage. You can be an African American woman and not have that affect your life, because that's who you are, that's the core of who you are, and that's what people react to initially. When I first started coaching, I would be in the fencing room and I would have a white male assistant coach, and anytime someone came into the room, they would immediately go to him, assuming he was the head coach. I've had people underestimate. I've had people make assumptions. I had an incident one time where a referee was pulled from I was about to do because they were African American and they didn't want it to seem like there was bias by having an African American referee, whereas that's never an issue with white fences and a white referee. There are always things and subtleties, implicit bias that people exhibit, sometimes unintentionally, that you have to deal with as an African country. I was also very fortunate in that I was one of Denise's girls. And in some ways that was a little bit of a protection because everyone knew my coach and her reputation and how she took care of us as her girls. So that buffered some of it. I had good friends who also accepted me for who I was as a person, but there were the people who did not and made assumptions. You come up against them in your entire life, in all aspects of your life, so it's nothing specific, particular to fencing. You learn how to cope, you learn how to adjust, you learn how to ignore, you learn how to work through. At times you have to verbally confront, you have to hold people accountable for what they say. It's not always easy, but it's important. And especially with what's going on in the world today, people have become more aware and more sensitive to some of the concerns that African Americans have in this country and the reality of our lives. Young people are the answer. You hear that every generation, but you can't let it deter you. You can't let other people define you. You have to be your best self and define who you are and not allow people to put you in a box. It's been rough. We have 6 freshmen. This is not how they pictured their freshman year of college being. They went from being home on Zoom in the spring to coming into college, and we started with a mix of hybrid classes, and after the first couple of weeks, went totally remote, doing classes on the computer in their dorm room. Not a fun thing. I am so proud of how well they've adjusted. It was not easy. Plus, we didn't start practice right away. There were delays in getting started with the university and with athletics. Then we had a 2-week back to practice that they had to do with our strength and conditioning folks before we could start practicing. And then there was an outbreak at the university, so we got shut down for another 2 weeks. And so finally we got started. It went really well because they were just so happy to be able to be in the fencing room and to be with each other, because you couldn't go from dorm to dorm. They had to stay in their dorm. You couldn't visit people. You couldn't do anything. It's been a big adjustment. And I admire how well they have handled it. And we've had to just go day by day. Things are constantly changing. The expectation for the spring semester is wishful, hopeful. Right now, we do have an adjusted schedule. We've pushed back our start date a week, so we won't start school till the middle of January. It'll give us a couple of weeks to train before we start to compete, but we're hoping to have competition throughout February into March. Right now, the NCAA is committed at this point to holding a championship. We had 5 girls qualify for NCAAs last year, and a week before we were to leave, we got word. We were actually in practice when we got word, and it was devastating. And so I think the NCAA understands that. They are trying to avoid having to have kids go through that for 2 years in a row. But we will have to see what happens with the numbers and with the vaccine now, and with just people taking the precautions so that we can get the numbers down. We control this to a large extent if we want to. My advice to any of the high school seniors that are looking for a fencing experience in college, this has been difficult because I've not been able to visit campus. They haven't been able to spend time with the team, which is something that we really depend a lot on that, of them getting to know the team and the team getting to know them. So that helps us make sure that it's a good fit. They have to be comfortable with what we're about, and we have to be comfortable with what they're about. So a lot of recruiting has been happening via Zoom. I think it's important for any high school senior to make sure that they are talking with team members to get a sense of what the team is like and what a typical day is like, so that they have a better feel and not just looking at what they can see online, but actually communicating with the coach as well as communicating with team members and asking good questions about what life is like at that particular school for a student athlete. Go for it. It's a great opportunity to really affect young people's lives. It's a great opportunity to see young people grow and mature over time. You are with them more than anyone in terms of hours in the day, besides maybe their roommates. And so you have to take your responsibility to their development seriously, and you have to care about their development as people. But if you do, it is so rewarding. The payoff in knowing that hopefully you made a little bit of a difference is what makes it very, very rewarding. But also understanding that you can't do it alone. You need a support system also. I've been very fortunate. My parents, my husband have all been such strong supporters of what I do, and I would not have been able to do it without that support. You know, my mom recently passed away, and as a kid, you know, she was like, whatever you want to do, I'll support it. She wasn't an athlete. My brother wasn't an athlete. I was the athlete. But, you know, if that's what you wanted to do, she supported it. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Harlem. No one knew anything about fencing. What is that? We were very fortunate that we had that type of family support. And then, you know, my husband and my kids have been some of my greatest cheerleaders.